Ollie was visiting a friend, a professor, over at the university in the biology building. In particular, it was a group that focused on genetics and human behavior. But that wasn't really what Ollie and his friend were talking about. They were talking about shuffleboard, because they were in a shuffleboard club sometimes. Played at a bar called Cuba Libre downtown. And so they were just having a coffee and chatting and visiting. They were walking down the hall when, quite unexpectedly, the wall, the door more accurately, but the wall, like the door including the wall around the door, bursting out into the hallway. Bits of rock and ceiling and plaster dust were flying everywhere. And this huge hulking figure, humanoid, but bigger and, I don't know, beefier than a normal human, was the one that broke through the wall, took one look at them, and roared and ran off down the hallway. They heard another crash and saw daylight streaming in. The monster had broken through the wall to the door to the outside. People came running in thinking there was trouble, seeing if they could help. Ollie thought that maybe chasing the monster might be the right thing to do, but also figuring out where it had come from. Then he realized that people might be hurt in the lab. And so he went there first. He darted into the lab, started looking around. There wasn't anybody in there. And it was mostly like lights turned off. There's really just one work area where the lights were on. And I walked over. There was a computer running, including a camera. All I could see himself in the camera, in the display on the screen. There was also an empty beaker, and only about a foot away was a full coffee cup and a sandwich. Ollie paused and saved the recording on the camera. It was a pretty standard video program, so Ollie could figure it out pretty easily. And then he played it back. He played it backwards, I mean. He scrolled back to see if he could see what had happened. With the beaker, which is sort of the shape of a coffee cup, so near the coffee cup, Ollie had a suspicion. And indeed, when he played back, he saw a scientist working on this computer. And they get up, and they reach, it looks like they're reaching for their coffee cup, accidentally pick up the beaker. They take a big swig, and then they slam it down. And at that point, Ollie can't quite see what's going on. But a minute or two later, where the scientist fell down, but not beneath where the camera showed, this big, weird, green, muscular monster got up. The torn lab coat. The whole 9 yards. Ollie asked around, because more people working in scientists and researchers that worked in the building had been sort of coming in to see what was going on. They asked if anybody knew what this person was working on. And one of the people said, "That's Dr. Gupta's bench. What was he doing? Oh, he was working on muscle growth and emotional regulation. He's trying to come up with a formula to make muscle grow even without actual exercise. He'd been doing some experiments with some rats and getting weird results. But wow, he really shouldn't have his food that close to the experiment station. That's not allowed. Supposed to take your lunch in the break room." I said, "Does Dr. Gupta do this often?" He said, no, actually, usually Dr. Gupta's one of the more sticklers for the safety regulations. That's a little weird. Then one of the other scientists, the head of the department, came in and said, everyone, we need to fan out. If that monster really is Dr. Gupta, we need to find him and help him calm down. The police are on their way, but we've got to help our colleague. Let's go. And all the scientists started to file out. They were a little nervous about this idea. They saw the holes in the wall, but Dr. Gupta was a colleague. And if he was in trouble, they intended to help. Ollie hung back a little bit. There was something that wasn't quite adding up. And he started reading through some of the notes as quickly as he could. Ollie's friend that he'd come to visit said, Ollie, aren't you coming to help? I said, yeah, I'll be there in a second. And read through the notes as quickly as he could, not even necessarily really absorbing it. Just reading it, he was thinking he could think about it as they went. He also took a couple of photos on his phone of the last few pages of the notebook. Then they went off. Ollie said, let me get up high. I'll see if I can spot him. Ollie's really good at climbing. So I climbed up a tree, and he jumped from the tree onto one of the buildings, and he was on the roof in less than a minute, which was very useful. He got up high and he was able to see, and he yelled down like, the monster's went to the woods, the creek there, on the west side of campus. Because you could see this big hulking shape stomping through the woods over by the glass pavilion. Great. But then the security guard came up, well, 3 security guards, well, more accurately, 4 security guards and 3 golf carts. And the department chair updated them. And they got on the radio and updated the police. And everybody headed toward the creek on that side of campus. For some reason, one of the people from the veterinary sciences department had come and heard about the incident. And they came with a tranquilizer dart. And the security guards weren't sure about that. The police hadn't really seen it yet. But this one scientist, Sarah Nelson, she was feeling pretty sure it'd work. I said, this is about the right dose for any mammal that size. And if this is a friend, we need to get him down. Otherwise, he'll end up tromping into the neighborhood. He'll end up getting shot by the police, or who knows, by some crazy local. She convinced one of the security guards with a golf cart of this. They got in, and they drove off. Ollie jumped onto the roof of the golf cart at the last minute. So if you're doing this, I'm coming along. I at least got to see this. So they tore off, the 3 of them, the security guard, the veterinary scientist with the tranquilizer gun, and Ollie, who had climbed down into the seat after they were moving. They got to the pedestrian bridge. And the security guard says, I can get this over the bridge. Did you give a line of sight? And Sarah Nelson said, yes. Give me to the middle of the bridge, and then you duck down and you can be my tripod. I can see him straight, and he's paused, thinking. So they went over there. Nice thing was that the golf cart was electric, so it was quiet. They got to the middle. Security guard leaned down. They put the tranquilizer gun on the security guard as planned. That did draw the monster's attention. It turned and started to look at Ollie. He climbed back up to the top of the golf cart. But before the monster came charging that way, Sarah pulled the trigger, and the dart went pounding into the monster's shoulder. It gave a mighty howl, knocked over 2 trees with mighty blows, and then slowly slumped over and fell asleep. And the 3 of them, nobody else saw this, saw as the monster, as soon as it was on the ground and unconscious, shrunk back to normal human Dr. Gupta size. Dr. Nelson jumped out of the cart She was very fit and in shape, and apparently a very good shot. And she started climbing down the hillside. "Get the medics!" she yelled. The security guard drove off to get the medics. When they got there, Dr. Gupta was groaning and said, "Oh, what happened? What hit me?" And Dr. Nelson said, "Well, I did. A big old tranquilizer gun, because you were a giant monster. What's going on?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. Something, last I remember, I was in my lab having lunch. And I don't know what happened." I said, "You drank your formula." "I drank my formula? Oh, how weird. That's a terrible mistake. Very unprofessional." And while the medics helped Dr. Gupta and Dr. Nelson get up out of the hillside, I always started reading through the photos of the notes that he'd taken, reading them carefully. Pretty soon they had Dr. Gupta up in an ambulance, and they were checking him out. And I said, "Is he okay?" And the medic said, "He seems stable, but we're going to take him to the hospital for observation." Ollie had come with 2 police officers, though. Ollie gave a nod, and the 2 police officers went over there and put Dr. Gupta in handcuffs. "What's going on?" said Dr. Gupta. "What's going on?" said Dr. Nelson. The police officer said, "Professor Gupta?" "Oh, just Dr. Gupta. I'm not a professor." "Fine. You're still under arrest for criminal mischief." And the department chair, who had come up then, said, "You're going to be under review when you get out for vastly inappropriate lab behavior." "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything. It was an accident." And that's when Ollie pulled up the notes. He said, "No, we read your notes. We saw the video file. You set it up to look like an accident, but you drank the formula on purpose." "What? Why would I?" Then the guy started to turn, to swell up again, like he was getting muscular again. He started to turn green again. I didn't mention this, but he was green. Dr. Nelson, who had been paying very close attention to the conversation, quickly pulled out another dose of tranquilizer, jabbed it right into his shoulder. Dr. Gupta went down, asleep. And then Dr. Nelson said, "All right, I'm on your side for about another 15 seconds. You better tell me what's going on." I said, "Well, the notes," he said, "he left. I guess he's a good scientist, even if a little bit of an ethical one, because he kept very good notes. He said that he'd been feeling angry, but he was too shy and too reserved to do anything about it. And when he saw the rats in his experiment seemed to lose their inhibitions as they gained muscle mass, he wanted to try it for himself. He took the formula on purpose. He brought his lunch in to make it look like an accident. And so he is criminally negligible for all that damage to the campus, and hopefully he didn't hurt anybody." One of the security guards chimed in and said, "Nobody seems to be hurt but him." "Well," said Dr. Nelson, "I guess you got your job to do." Meanwhile, Ollie had walked back to go see his friend, who originally came to visit about shuffleboard. He said, "Yeah, I can work on some of the formulas. His notes are very good, so I should be able to." He's a very smart guy, apparently a very angry guy. Never would have known. But, especially if he's willing to talk, I can reverse engineer this. I can get a cure. I'm pretty confident. The formula, it's brilliant. It's elegant. And part of its elegance is its simplicity. It's a very clever formulation he's come up with. "Well," said Ollie, keeping as far away from Dr. Gupta's coffee as possible, "I need a cup of coffee after that adventure. I spilled mine in the hallway while we were, running away from and then toward the monster." Dr. Nelson said, "Well, coffee's on me. I'm buying. I got to hear more about this whole shenanigans. And that was the case of Ollie and the sudden monster.